Hi folks. Today I thought I would talk about a battle that took place on October the 7th, 1780, during the American War of Independence. And it took place at Kings Mountain in South Carolina, very near, just below the border with North Carolina. And this battle was described as a major turning point in the American War of Independence. And the amazing thing about this battle, I feel, is it was fought largely between Scotsmen. So the background to this is that you may remember I mentioned in my video about Flora MacDonald that the vast majority of Highland Scots in North America, including many former Jacobites, were largely loyal to the British Crown during the American Revolution, and tended to fight during the conflict on the loyalist side. In contrast, however, Scots-Irish immigrants were in the main the reverse. They generally were ardent supporters of the revolution and fought on the patriot side. So, just to clarify there, the term Scots-Irish are used for people who are of Scottish origin, and they would have come mainly from the lowlands of Scotland, and they were usually Presbyterians. And they had emigrated to Ulster in the north of Ireland in the 1600s and 1700s, and then subsequently then emigrated to North America. So in the American colonies in 1780, you had these two groups of Scots: Highland Scots supporting the Crown and Scots-Irish fighting against it. Quite amazing. So anyway, let's talk about the battle itself. Here we are in 1780. The American War of Independence has been underway for 5 bloody years. Now in the north it had largely reached a point of stalemate. But in the south, the war had been going quite badly for the Patriots. Loyalist forces had captured Savannah, and then in a major victory they had taken Charleston. The British Army then turned north and marched up into North Carolina, and the British commander, Lord Cornwallis, he dispatched Major Patrick Ferguson, a Scotsman from Aberdeenshire, to protect his western flank, his left flank as it were, his western flank, from Patriot militias. There's just an interesting little point, a wee historical point here I would like to make, is that in the forthcoming battle that we're going to talk about, there was only one professional soldier, and that was this man, Major Patrick Ferguson from Aberdeenshire. All the rest were volunteers. It was militias that were fighting, and these were just volunteers. This battle is described sometimes as the only battle during the American War of Independence where it was just Americans were fighting. So it is very interesting, because obviously generally British troops were involved. On the American side, French troops and Spanish troops often fought, and German troops sometimes fought on the British side. So it tended to be a lot. But this one, just Americans, you could say, of Scottish descent. Anyway, Major Patrick Ferguson from Aberdeenshire, he's dispatched with his militia, his loyalist militia army, made up mostly of Highland Scots. So he's dispatched over to the west side, and there were some early skirmishes with the Patriots. Ferguson then established his base camp at Gilberttown in North Carolina. And whilst there, he issued a challenge to the Patriot leaders to lay down their arms, or he would, in his words, lay waste to their country with fire and sword. The Patriot leaders, in response, put out a call for volunteers, and about 1,100 men from the western parts of North Carolina and the eastern parts of what is now Tennessee answered the call and mustered at this famous muster at the rendezvous point that was chosen, which was at Sycamore Shoals, and they mustered there on September the 25th. Now these men became known as the Over-Mountain Men, and that was because they came mostly from what was then the wilderness parts west of the Appalachians. Over-Mountain Men, and became quite famous, I think. Anyway, the Patriot Army now numbered 1,400 men, far greater than the Loyalist militia under Ferguson. And immediately the Patriots set out to march to do battle with the Loyalists. Two deserters from the Patriots' ranks, however, informed Ferguson of the approach, and Ferguson decided he would retire. So Ferguson and his militiamen moved away, and he had 1,200 men by now. So he and his men then made camp at Kings Mountain on the 6th of October. The Patriots, however, were in hot pursuit, and they arrived at the Loyalist camp early in the afternoon of the 7th, and decided to immediately attack. Unfortunately, Ferguson and his men were totally unaware of the Patriots' approach, which you could say was a bit silly on their behalf. And he and his men were caught totally by surprise. The Loyalists were located on the top of the hill, and the Patriots crept up the slope, through and protected by trees and rocks and things like that, and started firing at the Loyalist militia. When the Loyalists militia counterattacked, as they would do, and they charged them with bayonets fixed, the Patriots merely slipped away, disappearing back into the trees, and then they would wait a little while and just repeat the attack again, and the Loyalists would try to charge them, and the Patriots would disappear back into the woods, and so it went on. After an hour of this, Loyalist casualties were very high, and then the Patriots managed to reach the top of the hill at the back, and they attacked the rear of the Loyalists. The Loyalists were driven back, and at that point some of them began to surrender. Major Ferguson drew his sword, and in an attempt to rally his men, shouted out, "Hurrah, brave boys, the day is ours." And he and a few officers charged and tried to cut through the ring of Patriot militia. However, Ferguson was shot, and he was dragged by his horse, unfortunately, behind the Patriot lines. There he was confronted by a rebel officer who demanded that he immediately surrender. In a final act of defiance, you might say, Ferguson shot and killed this man, but was then obviously shot dead by a number of other Patriots who were present. So with their leader dead, the Loyalist resistance crumbled, and they surrendered. The Patriots had won the day, and their surprising victory was a great boost to patriot morale in the region at that time, because it hadn't been going well for them. And the victory ultimately forced Lord Cornwallis to abandon his march into and his invasion of North Carolina, and to retreat back to South Carolina. President Theodore Roosevelt later said of the Battle of Kings Mountain, "This brilliant victory marked the turning point of the American Revolution." And so I find this quite amazing, that this relatively, what was a relatively small battle, fought largely between men of Scots descent, led ultimately to the surrender of the British in North America, and the creation of the United States of America. Anyway, as usual, I do hope you've enjoyed this little historical insight. If you have, it's great if you could give me a like and share it with your friends, so that they can enjoy it also. Remember, all my videos are available on my YouTube channel, which is called Gordon Scotland. So they're there for you at all times. If you ever want to watch one again, or if there's some that you've missed, you'll find them all there. Again, remember, during these very difficult times, please keep yourself safe. And until we all meet again, I just want to wish you all the very best from Scotland.